Good afternoon and welcome to the 2026 IDM Danube Salon at the Europa-Forum Wachau, European Regions Fostering European Integration. My name is Sebastian Schäffer. I'm the director of the IDM and I have the pleasure to moderate tonight's event. We have had the honor to organize the IDM Danube Salon as part of the Europa-Forum Wachau since 2021, when the very first edition also marked the 10th anniversary of the EU strategy for the Danube region. And back then we asked a simple but powerful question. How can strong regions become drivers of European integration today? And on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the same strategy, we are once again putting that question at the heart of our discussion. Over the years, the Salon has traced a clear arc. From the early focus on cohesion, connectivity, and solidarity in times of crisis, to the sharpened debate on security and resilience, to the deliberate turn to women's perspectives on Europe's future, and finally, last year's Facing Polarization, Embracing Dialogue, which explored how remembrance culture, media, and civic engagement can counter division in our societies. Today, we connect all these threads and bring the conversation back to the core idea of the very first Salon, the agency of regions. In this year's Danube Salon, we will ask how European regions can translate political ambitions into concrete, visible integration on the ground, not least in the context of Ukraine's European perspective. I would therefore like to warmly welcome our long-standing partners, the Working Community of the Danube Regions, Office of the State Government of Lower Austria and the Europa-Forum Wachau for making the space for dialogue between Vienna, the Danube region and Ukraine once again possible. And to set the scene for us, I would like to invite Simon Ortner, Secretary General of the Working Community of the Danube Regions, the ARGE Donauländer, and Head of the Department of International and European Affairs at the Office of the State Government of Lower Austria for the opening and presentation of the annual program of the ARGE Donauländer. Simon, please.
Distinguished guests, dear friends of the Danube and friends of Europe, welcome to the Danube Salon. In this format within the European Forum Wachau, I wanted to create a dedicated space here at the European Forum Wachau for the conversations that matters most to our network. The working community of the Danube regions, the idea of the working community of the Danube regions was created before the fall of the Iron Curtain. Think about that for a moment. At a time when Europe was still divided, when traveling from Vienna to Budapest was anything but simple, a group of regions decided to talk to each other anyway. The idea was straightforward. Regions can sometimes do what national governments cannot. They can maintain dialogue when official relations at member state level are difficult. They can build practical cooperation in transport, for example, or in culture or in economic development without waiting for the perfect political moment. After 1989, the working community was officially established. Things become much easier. EU enlargement opened borders, programs like Interreg provided funding for cross-border projects and facilitated cooperation. Other formats of bilateral or even multilateral cooperations arose. For a while, working together across the Danube region felt almost natural. More a question of good project management than of political courage. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine changed that, and the instability of the Western Balkans reminds us that European integration, however complex and demanding, remakes the most reliable anchor of stability, prosperity, and the rule of law on our shared European neighborhood. And even within the European Union, dialogue has become harder in recent years, between member states and sometimes between regions and their own national governments. Global shifts and growing budgetary restrictions are changing the picture. Exactly this is the context in which the working community of the Danube regions matters again, not as a bureaucratic structure, but as a real network, one that connects EU and non-EU regions, that works independently of funding cycles, and that keeps the conversation going when the political weather is changing or the political weather is difficult. Today is really a special day because I have the honor of presenting the new presidency of the working community of the Danube regions, the Oblast Odessa. Welcome, my friends. And this is not just an administrative handover. In the current situation, it carries a clear message. Odessa is part of a Danube region. It is a region with deep European roots and an extraordinary history. And right now, it is also a region living through with war. The fact that Oblast Odessa takes on the presidency of our network at this moment says something very important about their commitment and about ours. The working community is a place where their voice is heard, and we are very proud of that. Lower Austria, with the support of our governor, Johanna Mikl-Leitner, hosts this platform. And we do so with conviction. The European Forum Wachau is also part of our commitment. This year's forum shows what is possible when regions take initiative. We are a strong region at the center of Europe, and we want to contribute to the European conversation. Not just talk about it, actually do it. Ladies and gentlemen, before I close, I want to raise something that concerns me professionally and personally. European actors at all levels are currently discussing the upcoming multi-annual financial framework. Goals seem to be shifting more, centralization is to be expected. There is currently a serious discussion in Brussels about abolishing the Directorate for Regional Policy and cutting back cohesion policy in terms of thematic priorities as well as budgetary allocations. I understand all the arguments of the European Commission very well. Simplification, efficiency, less bureaucracy, these are legitimate goals. But from our point of view, the answer cannot be more centralization. Europe has tried centralized top-down approaches before. They do not build trust, they do not reach citizens, and they do not reflect the enormous diversity that is, in fact, one of Europe's greatest strengths. The Europe of the regions is not an old-fashioned idea. It is the right idea. If Brussels wants to reconnect with European citizens, it should listen more to regions, not less. I say this with great respect for the work of the European Commission, but also with great clarity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Danube River does not care about borders. It has been connecting this part of the world for thousands of years. The working community of the Danube regions tries to follow that logic. And I I hope the Danube Salon and the Europa-Forum Wachau becomes a place that does the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, for setting the stage for us. And it's great to be back on Campus Krems in this new beautiful science hall. We started back in 2021 in the auditorium of the University for Continuing Education. I would like to welcome the Rector Emeritus and Chairman of the IDM, Fritz Vollhammer, here to the Danube Salon. We have been on a ship for the Danube Salon. We've been in the beautiful Landesgalerie, but now it's a bit more like coming home and starting anew. And just like the Odessa Oblast, who starts the chairmanship of the ARGE Donauländer, but is also coming home to where it all started here back in 1982 in Lower Austria. So I would like to welcome to the stage Vadim Shkarivsky, Deputy Chairman of the Odessa Regional Council and Chairman of the Working Community of the Danube Regions, the ARGE Donauländer 2026 and 2027.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and partners,
Дозвольте передусім подякувати всім за ту підтримку України в цей тяжкий час для нашої країни. І для нас це не просто політичні якісь заяви, а реальна солідарність, яку ми відчуваємо щодня у співпраці між регіонами, готовності допомогти, чути один одного і спільно шукати рішення навіть у найскладніших ситуаціях.
first of all, let me express my sincere gratitude for your support of Ukraine during this incredibly challenging time for our country. For us, there's not just political statements, but real solidarity that we feel every day. We see it in the cooperation between our regions, in your readiness to help, to listen each other, and to find solutions together even in the most difficult situations.
У цьому контексті особливо важливо говорити про міжнародні платформи, які об'єднують наші регіони і створюють простір для системного діалогу. Однією з таких платформ є ARGE Donauländer.
In this context, it's especially important to talk about international platforms that bring our regions together and create space for a regular dialogue. One such platform is ARGE Donauländer, a community of the Danube regions based on cooperation, mutual support, and a shared vision of development. Today, it's a great honor for me not only to be a part of this community, but also to chair it for the next 2 years.
Ми сприймаємо це головування не як формальну роль, а як відповідальність і можливість посилити практичну взаємодію між дунайськими регіонами. Саме тому ми вже сформували робочу програму 2026-2027 років між Одеською областю та Нижньою Австрією, яка реалізується в рамках ARGE Donauländer.
We see this presidency not as a formal role, but as a real responsibility and opportunity to strengthen practical cooperation among the Danube regions. That is why we have already created the 2026-2027 working program between Odessa region and Lower Austria, implemented within ARGE Donauländer.
У центрі цієї програми розвиток території, економіки, сільського господарства, морського та річкового сполучення та поліпшення логістики.
At the heart of this program is the development of our territories, economies, agriculture, maritime, river connections and better logistics.
Окремий пріоритет – це енергетична стійкість у кризових умовах. Не менш важливим є блок охорони здоров'я в умовах кризи.
A key priority is energy resilience in times of crisis. Equally important is the healthcare sector under crisis conditions. This includes backup power systems for hospitals, mobile medicine for remote communities, and sharing experience in military medicine, crisis response, and mental health.
Ми також приділяємо значну увагу науці та дослідженням адаптації до кліматичних змін у Дунайському регіоні. Окремо важливим є залучення наших громад до програми «Горизонт Європа» та «Інтеррег».
We also focus heavily on science and research regarding climate change adaptation in the Danube region. Another crucial point is involving our local communities in the Horizon Europe and Interreg programs. Educational visits, which allow us to share the professional experience on the ground, are also a vital part of this work.
І вже в цьому ширшому європейському контексті важливо говорити про саму Одеську область.
Looking at this broader European context, it's essential to talk about the Odessa region itself.
Одеська область є особливим регіоном України. Це сама велика за площею та сама багатонаціональна область в Україні. Понад 133 національності проживає на нашій території.
The Odessa region is a very special part of Ukraine, multi-ethnic and the largest territory of Ukraine. And multi-ethnical because we have more than 133 nationalities. It is open and strategically important.
Одеса, можна сказати, що європейське місто з самого початку його існування. Так як до його розбудови були причетні як австрійці, італійці, французи, греки, іспанці та інші народи Європи. І до сьогоднішнього дня на території Одеси є вулиці, бульвари та площі, названі в честь цих людей.
From the very beginning, Odessa has been a European city because a lot of European nations contributed to its design and constructors, especially Austrian, Italians, Spaniards, Greeks people, French people, and many other nationals. So to this day, our streets, boulevards, squares, and avenues are named in honor of them.
Водночас це потужний аграрний, логістичний та транспортний центр не лише України, а всього Дунайського та Чорноморського регіону. Ключову роль тут відіграють 7 портів.
At the same time, it's a powerful agricultural, logistical, and transport hub not only for Ukraine, but for the entire Danube and Black Sea regions. And our 7 ports play a key role here.
Не менш важливою є аграрна сфера. Одеська область – один із провідних аграрних регіонів України, де сільське господарство є основною життя багатьох громад.
Agriculture is equally vital. The Odessa region is one of the Ukraine's leading agricultural areas where farming is the basis of many local communities.
У 2025 році було зібрано більше 4 мільйонів тонн зерна. Площа виноградників в області складає майже 24 тисячі гектар, а на них вирощують більше 260 тисяч тонн винограду. Це понад 75% виноградарства та виноробства України.
In 2025, we harvested over 4 million tons of grain. Our vineyards cover nearly 24,000 hectares, producing about 260,000 tons of grapes. This accounts for more than 75% of all the viticulture and winemaking industry in Ukraine.
Суттєвим є освітній та науковий потенціал регіону. Тут зосереджені заклади вищої освіти та наукові установи, які формують людський капітал і забезпечують розвиток ключових сфер. Ми співпрацюємо з багатьма провідними університетами світу, в тому числі і з Віденським університетом природних ресурсів і прикладних наук та Зальцбурзьким університетом.
The educational and scientific potential of our region is also significant. We have top universities and research institutions that build human capital and drive development in key areas. We cooperate with many leading universities worldwide, including the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna, Boku, and University of Salzburg.
Окремо хотів би підкреслити важливість міжнародної співпраці між Одеською областю.
I would like to highlight how important international cooperation is for the Odessa region.
У рамках підписаних договорів по співробітництву Одеська область сьогодні має міжнародних партнерів більш ніж у 40 регіонах 22 країн.
Through official cooperation agreements, the Odessa region currently has international partners in more than 40 regions across 22 countries, including Lower Austria. This wide network allows us to run joint projects, share experience, attract investments, and create new opportunities for our local communities.
Також Одеський регіон є активним учасником ключових європейських структур та міжнародних платформ співпраці.
Additionally, the Odessa region is an active member of key European structures and international platforms. We view international partnership as a real tool for shared growth. It helps our region become stronger, more resilient, and better integrated into the European space.
І саме через таку співпрацю ми маємо можливість не тільки ділитися власним досвідом, а й разом формувати майбутнє наших громад та всього Дунайського регіону.
Through this cooperation, we can not only share our own experience, but also shape the future of our communities and the entire Danube region together.
Завершуючи, хочу ще раз наголосити, політика згуртованості регіонів сьогодні є надзвичайно важливою. Зокрема, співпраця з президентом Асамблеї Європейських регіонів та депутатом Європейського парламенту Лукасом Манделом вже приносить свої практичні результати.
In conclusion, I would like to announce once again that the regional cohesion policy is extremely important today. Our cooperation with the President of Assembly of European Region and Member of European Parliament Lukas Mandel is bringing practical results. We are sincerely grateful to this consistent support of this policy and to the attention to the voices of the region. We truly feel that it's through such international platforms that our positions become more visible and our cooperation more effective, because it's the region that today shape the real substance of European integration.
Одним з таких результатів співпраці стало створення робочої групи з українськими регіонами та підтримки депутатів Європейського парламенту.
One of these results is the creation of working group with Ukrainian regions, supported by members of European Parliament.
Ідея цієї ініціативи полягає у формуванні більш тісної та системної взаємодії між європейськими політиками та українськими регіонами.
The idea of these initiatives is to build a closer cooperation and more structured cooperation between European policymakers and Ukrainian regions.
Фактично йдеться про новий формат партнерства, у межах якого окремі депутати Європейського парламенту співпрацюватимуть з конкретними українськими регіонами, допомагаючи посилювати міжнародні контакти, підтримувати діалог з європейськими інституціями, сприяти просуванню регіональних ініціатив та привертати увагу до потреб і викликів громад.
In fact, it's a new format of partnership where individual members of the European Parliament will work closely with specific Ukrainian regions. This will help strengthen cooperation, international contacts, support dialogue with European institutions, and promote regional initiatives, and also draw attention to the needs and challenges of the local communities.
Попри те, що ця ініціатива лише починає формуватися, ми вже бачимо в ній великий потенціал для посилення міжрегіональної співпраці, обміну досвідом та підтримки процесів відновлення європейської інтеграції України саме через регіональний вибір.
Also, this initiative is just beginning to take shape. We already see its great potential for strengthening interregional cooperation, sharing experience, and supporting Ukraine's recovery and European integration processes through the regional dimension.
Дякую за увагу.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vadim, for this wonderful opening words. Please stay at the stage. Also, I would like to ask Diana Yevtimova, who is doing the translation, to stay here with us. Although for the room, it's not entirely necessary to do the translation because we have a lot of guests from Ukraine here. With us in the room is the next visionaries from just a trip back from the Youth Charlemagne Prize that they won for Austria. Congratulations and thank you for being with us. That deserves a round of applause, definitely. And now I would like to ask to join us on the stage for our panel discussion, Ambassador Harald Stranzl, National Coordinator of the EU Danube Region and EU Alpine Region Strategy and Coordinator Reconstruction Ukraine at the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs. Harald, please. Ambassador Martin Eichtinger, Director of the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. Razvan Stefan Raab, National Coordinator of the EUSDR at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Romania. And last but not least, Sophia Weiter, Research Associate at the Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe. Fun fact, 60% of this panel were already participating 5 years ago. However, in some different capacities and also not all in the panel discussion. So I'm looking forward to an update, but also an outlook in the future. Avid followers of the Danube Salon know the drill, but for the new guests, some housekeeping. I will be asking a couple of questions where there is the possibility afterwards also for the audience to ask questions, and then I will ask a final question to all, and then we will continue from there. I will also start with a question to all of my panelists, and if we look 30 years ahead, because the motto of this 30th edition of the Europa-Forum Wachau is the next 30. So if we look 30 years ahead, what will have mattered more in practice for European integration? EU-level treaty reforms or the strength of regional cooperation on the ground? And how do those two interact? Keep it as short as possible, but also as extensive as necessary. And I would like to start with you, Harald. Maybe you can kick us off with this round.
Thank you, Sebastian. Actually, it's a very exciting question. Looking 30 years ahead into the year 2056. So also interesting in the sense how many EU member states will there be together for how many years. Perhaps the Western Balkan countries and Ukraine, Moldova will be already members of European Union. Perhaps also Iceland, Norway. We don't know, but nevertheless very interesting to have this question and to reflect upon it. Personally, of course, I very much hope that it's going to be a strong, united and strategically sovereign Europe, with regional cooperation as a motor for tangible progress for citizens. You asked also the question on EU treaty reforms and how it interacts with regional cooperation. I mean, one has to be clear that the EU always adapted its structures in history. I mean, we remember Maastricht Treaty, Nice Treaty, Lisbon Treaty, very often along enlargement processes, to be frank. And this will remain also the case in the future. I'm sure about that. It's necessary that the Union keeps being and remaining efficient. A lot has to do with decision-making and voting systems. We all know how difficult it is to change to majority voting when it comes to foreign policy and enlargement. I mean, we know currently the debates going on also on the question of enlargement, of accession of Ukraine and all the other countries. So far, there is consensus, but we all know that if we want to speed up the process, we have to be perhaps a bit more courageous and also think about introducing more often majority voting. More specifically on the question of regions, I can just add very briefly, in general, regions and local level will become more and more important. This has to do also, I think, with subsidiary principle, but also with the perception of the European Union. So it's necessary that the citizens down the road, that they really see the difference of European Union membership, and that's the reason why regional cooperation is so important and where it comes in. I mean, that's also the reason why on EU level and also on the level of member states, we have regional cooperation mechanism, formal ones and informal ones. For Austria and our event today, in particular important, of course, Central Europe and the Danube Region. I would just mention perhaps Slavkov cooperation, Central 5 cooperation, very important to Austria because it brings together our neighboring countries on a regular exchange and coordination, facing similar challenges. My minister, for example, Madame Meindl-Reisinger, she's also very strong in favor of stronger and more efficient Central European cooperation. And then we should not forget that there is also a kind of new situation with a newly elected Hungarian Prime Minister Magyar actually coming to Vienna the day after tomorrow, because he was also advocating very strongly a more strong cooperation of the Central European countries based on Visegrad and Slavkov. I think I'll stop here, just mentioning at the end of this reply to your question. Of course, we have then also very dear to me and perhaps also to my Romanian colleague, the EU strategy for the Danube region, which celebrates 15 years actually this year. Also very important because it brings together 14 countries from the Black Forest to the Black Sea with almost 120 million inhabitants, which is a quarter of EU population. But perhaps later on we can go into this one in more details.
Very good. Thank you very much. Short commercial break because Harald set the stage. So tomorrow, if you will read a Austrian newspaper, Die Presse, there will be a case for another minilateral format that we made at IDM. We published a policy paper last week. We call it the Schönbrunn 6. I'll leave it there. for you to read more about this. But continuing on 30 years ahead, Martin, you have been part also of the Europa-Forum for quite some time as the president. So looking a little bit back, but also into the future, where will we stand in?
Well, thank you very much, Sebastian. First of all, a great thank you for the invitation. IDM is a very trusted partner, I think, for all of us who are interested in the region and in Europe. And particularly also now in my new position as director of the Diplomatic Academy, we share a lot of interest in the region. I would also like to thank Friedrich Faulhammer for all the initiatives. I remember that we jointly were in Timișoara on the occasion of your presidency of the Danube Rectors Conference. Well, if I look back, I've been around for a few years, as you can tell from my gray hair, and I've been around for the signature of the working community of the Danube region on the 17th of May 1990 on a ship outside of just in front of Dürnstein on the Danube. And I must say, over the years, I have never ceased to be involved in the Danube region. And I would like to congratulate our friends from Odessa for taking on the chairmanship. It is a very important organization. Well, over the years, what should I say? I was ambassador to Romania in preparing the European Union strategy for the Danube region, and I'm really very happy how much it has evolved in terms of very precise projects. What is probably still a little bit missing, but we were constantly working on it. And Harald and I, we were jointly working on Austria's chairmanship of the EUSDR in 2024. Of course, there needs to be a lot of political impulse for this EUSDR. I was also happy to contribute to lots of projects along the Danube during my time as member of the government of Lower Austria. And I must say, it all has proven to me the importance of the regions. And now I get to the future, 30 years from now. If we really want to see what we all hope, to see a greatly flourishing, a global player, European Union, well integrated, enlarged, competitive, great on the world stage, we need to take along our citizens. And I think the human factor is just absolutely decisive. And this is where the regions come in, because what Simon Ortner just said, it's the regions who can make sure that we get the support also for everything, for anything that we want to accomplish in the European Union. We need to take the citizens along. And not only ours, because if you look to the opinion polls, we still do not have a majority in the Austrian public for the enlargement, for example. We need to convince our citizens of the great added value of enlargement. And how can you actually get to this point? I think the best is to make them familiar with all our members in the European Union and among the candidate countries. And I think the knowledge about the different cultures, traditions, identities, this is what also gives you the confidence and trust in the region. And we really need this. So the next 30 years, I think, will be determined if we can take the citizens along, because if they come along and if they are in favor of integrating further and enlarging further the European Union, then we can also make changes in the governance. Because this can only happen if we have the support of our citizens. And this is where the regions can be extremely helpful. And as Simon Ortner said, I'm also very skeptical about the multi-annual financial framework and the idea that the regions will no longer be able to directly correspond and work with Brussels on regional funds and cohesion money. So this is extremely important. So to sum it up, I'm very convinced the human factor is the key for the development of the European Union over the next years, and this can best be accomplished by giving the regions a great role.
Thank you very much. You've mentioned many important things that we will certainly also continue to be discussing, but you mentioned first and foremost the EUSDR in Romania, and therefore, of course, we are very happy that we have the coordinator here with us again, 5 years after. So, Stefan Raab, give us an update what will happen in the next 30 years. Maybe also what has happened in the last 5 years.
Thank you very much for this kind invitation. Indeed, I was here 5 years ago, and it's always a pleasure to revisit Krems and the marvelous Wachau region. Indeed, the initiative was launched 15 years ago, as said here before, by Austria and Romania. We have jointly established the EU Danube strategy, a format for cooperation between 14 countries, and which proved to be successful, with a lot of projects implemented to the benefit of our population in the Danube region. To come back to your precise question related to the future, indeed, me too, I believe that regional cooperation will continue to intensify. New formats for cooperation will be established, because there's a wide acknowledgement of the fact that some problems can be better achieved through regional cooperation. Those problems, those challenges which go far beyond one country's border. I have in mind environment issues or tackling organized crime and so on and so forth. So regional cooperation, in my view, will continue to expand based on the shared values and on the assumption of a shared regional identity. Basically, all these formats for regional cooperation will impact on the treaty reforms. They will actually trigger the EU level treaty reform, and they will shape the way in which these reforms will be created in the future. Moreover, enlargement, also the policy of enlargement, the objectives of enlargement will also heavily push and contribute impact on the reform of the treaties, as will also influence the new challenges the EU is facing with since the war of aggression against Ukraine. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We move to the Delta, and yeah, it's not easy for a candidate country to talk about treaty reforms because they're always excluded from it. But maybe 30 years ahead, Ukraine will be a member country, and Ukraine will have also the possibility to shape that. So again, if we look 30 years ahead, what will have mattered more in practice for the European integration, but also for Ukraine, maybe in special EU-level treaty reforms or the strength of regional cooperation?
Дякую за таку можливість. Ми рахуємо, що в довгострочній перспективі два процеси це не є взаємовиключеними, вони доповнюють один одного.
Thank you for this opportunity to answer this question. In the long-term perspective, these two processes are not mutually exclusive. They reinforce one another.
Реформи Європейського Союзу на рівні його формують стратегічну рамку, правила та спільні стандарти.
Reforms at the level of European Union create the strategic framework, rules and common standards.
Але водночас саме регіональна співпраця забезпечує їх практичну реалізацію через конкретні проекти, партнерство та щоденну взаємодію громад.
But at the same time is regional cooperation that ensures their practical implementation through concrete projects, partnerships and day-to-day interaction of communities.
З нашого досвіду, зокрема в рамках ARGE Donauländer, АЄР, ЄБРР, Єврорегіон Нижній Дунай, саме регіональні формати дозволяють швидко адаптувати європейські підходи до реальних потреб території і будувати довіру між партнерами.
From our experience, particularly within the ARGE Donauländer, AER, AEBR, Euro-Region, Lower Danube, interregional formats make it possible to quickly adapt European approaches to the real needs of territories and to build trust among partners.
Тому в горизонті 30 років вирішальним фактором успіху є не вибір між цими підходами, а їх синергія.
Therefore, over the next 30 years, the decisive factor for success will not be a choice between these approaches, but their synergy.
Сильні європейські інституції та активні регіони, які разом формують згуртовану і стійку Європу.
Strong European institutions and active regions working together to shape a cohesive and resilient Europe.
Нам, звичайно, на сьогодні дуже тяжко щось прогнозувати не тільки на 30 років, а на 30 днів.
Nowadays, for us, especially for our country, it's hard to prognose something for 30 years and even for 30 days.
На жаль, наше життя війна розділила до і, надіюсь, після неї.
Unfortunately, war divided our life and before and after. We hope after will come soon.
Але ми все рівно виживаємо, ми працюємо, розвиваємо нашу країну, віримо, що це буде сильна країна в Європейському Союзі.
But we are alive, we're working, we're developing our country, and we believe we will be a part of EU. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have another Charlemagne Prize related person with us. Sophia Beiter was a Charlemagne Prize Academy Fellow 2024-2025. Has done extensive research on things that we are going to talk about. But first of all, I'm of course also interested in your 3-decade prognosis for the European Union.
Yeah, thank you very much. After so many great speakers, there's not much for me left to say. I mean, I fully agree. I think especially also with what Martin said about that we need the support of citizens for the future of European integration. And regional cooperation, cross-border regional cooperation, can be much more tangible for citizens and can in a much more meaningful and visible way explain to citizens the benefits of European integration. And so, I think while EU-level treaty reforms are kind of the institutional framework and basis for the future of European integration, regional cooperation can build this trust and legitimacy also of the process. But because regional cooperation was here mentioned more than the EU-level treaty reforms, I can also say that I really think EU-level treaty reforms are very necessary, especially if we look into the next 30 years. In 30 years, I really hope that we will have a new EU treaty, because the last one is from 2007, which is already 20 years ago. But even if we think a bit more short-term, there could already be reforms done right now that don't need a treaty reform, especially if it comes to decision-making, and especially if we think about EU enlargement. Unanimity voting in EU enlargement and the EU enlargement process creates 1,900 veto points. And some of these veto points could be removed without a treaty change. So the unanimity voting for the opening and closing of each individual negotiation chapter, this is not treaty mandated, this is just how it has been done. And so removing this and moving here to qualified majority voting would already significantly reduce veto points and would make the process more efficient, and could be done right now without any treaty change. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Well, regional cooperation and enlargement process has been mentioned a couple of times, so I come back to you, Harald. What role does regional contribution and the EUSDR play in this EU enlargement process, and how can stronger links between the Danube region and also maybe the Black Sea region be established? What's the significance of the Black Sea strategy in this current context?
Thank you, Sebastian, for this question. I start with enlargement. And with the fact that enlargement is the most important geostrategic tool of the European Union. And regional cooperation has to support candidate countries on their way to EU accession. That goes without saying. And here, the already mentioned EU strategy for the Danube region comes in, because EUSDR brings together 14 countries, but 5 of them are not yet known or not yet member states. The 3 Western Balkan countries, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, and then also Ukraine and Moldova. So EUSDR, this EU strategy for the Danube region, has in fact 2 main objectives. The first one is to implement projects for regional development, but then also preparing candidate countries for accession. So EUSDR is a kind of a laboratory of accession, and it aligns policies of those accession countries, including Ukraine, of course, with EU requirements already ahead of accession, and also very important, building administrative capacity. Also, another very important feature of EUSDR is it's an equal footing cooperation between member states and candidate countries. So also candidate countries can take over the presidency. I think also this is very important because it's a huge opportunity for the candidate countries to show real European and regional leadership, as has been done by Ukraine already in 2022 when the war started and Ukraine was still ready to take over this Danube region presidency, and obviously also the Oblast of Odessa taking over the presidency of ARGE Donauländer when unfortunately the war is still going on. So I come also to Austria. I mean, enlargement, it's, I think, generally known that we are one of the most active supporters of EU enlargement. We initiated this Friends of the Western Balkan Group. We are also one of the top trade and investment partners in the region. So we have a vital interest in Austria in a stable, prosperous and secure Danube region, and also Black Sea. This brings me to the end of your question, a Black Sea region, Black Sea strategy. I mean, we know Danube River links Central Europe to the Black Sea. The Black Sea region is of crucial geopolitical importance, plays a key role for European stability and security, energy, critical raw materials, food security. I could go on. And it's always been and will be also in the future at a critical crossroads between Europe, Central Asia and also the Middle East, very important under the current geopolitical situation. Therefore, it was good that the European Union adopted a new Black Sea strategy. Again, a country like Romania was very active and instrumental in proposing it, which is focusing on stability, security, by trying to strengthen trade routes, protecting infrastructure, and also trying to counter Russian influence and disinformation, to be very frank on that. Of course, it's very difficult to implement this strategy at its full potential as long as the war goes on. But it's useful to prepare for the day after. It's also very important, I think, since we talk about geopolitics, to align Turkey to the extent possible to the European Union, because Turkey is also a very important partner of the Black Sea economic cooperation. And I conclude with another fact. Let's never forget the security of Europe will be defined in its eastern flank in the Danube and the Black Sea region. Thank you.
Thank you, Harald. Martin, there have been a lot of geopolitical dimensions mentioned now with what Harald just said. Someone who is also working on a really global outlook from a diplomatic perspective. How important can this regional cooperation and formats like the EUSDR be to shape the geopolitics and not just to coordinate between regions?
I think regional cooperation always has, to a large extent, also a geopolitical function and a geopolitical consequence. If you look, for example, to the EUSDR or also the community, the working group of the Danube region, there's always a political coordination involved, which of course is an element of geopolitics. And then regional corporations more and more show that they are the means for small and medium-sized states to also play a role on a larger stage. If you look to the Middle East, if you look to Asia, region cooperation has become a model to increase political weight and to also have a geopolitical, increase geopolitical possibilities. I would also like to say that there are many elements in all the regional strategies which are so important also in terms of geopolitics. Take the questions of supply chains. Take the questions of transport corridors. If you look, for example, to the efforts of the European Union, I always love to mention the letter report on the single European railway area. When you connect regions by railway, by roads, by infrastructure, this connectivity necessarily and quite naturally also has a geopolitical function. So I don't think that there's any regional cooperation which you could not also see from a point of view of a geopolitical development. And Harald mentioned the Friends of the Western Balkans, which is also a regional group of the 7 friends. By the way, as Harald also mentioned, founded at the European Forum Wachau in 2023, also with this great idea of gradual integration. So also that, it's a regional cooperation, but with a very clear geopolitical goal. So I think regional cooperation and geopolitics always go hand in hand. And I think we should not underestimate this possibility to develop geopolitical strategies out of regional cooperations.
Okay. Thank you. Stefan Raab, the Danube strategy, as we mentioned, turned 15 this year. And when you now look back, has it remained mainly a coordination tool, or has it generally reshaped how integration works in the region, and maybe also has it a geopolitical dimension to it, would you say?
Yes, well, it has certainly started as a coordination tool at the initiative of Romania and Austria here in Wachau during the Europa-Forum. And it was aimed to reach more convergence, economic but also territorial and social convergence between 14 countries, and to decrease the disparities among different regions, those more developed regions in Baden-Württemberg and Bayern, Austria, and those less developed towards the Danube Delta. And Romania and Austria continue to cooperate very well on this strategy. They coordinate jointly the area dedicated to transport on the rivers, Danube and the main tributaries. And they also, our countries also host jointly the secretariat of the EU strategy for the Danube region. Secretariat located with 2 offices, one in Vienna, the other one in Bucharest. The secretariat is well established and well acknowledged as an institution which provides full support to all participants to this strategy. But beyond the pure coordination, there is also the implementation of concrete projects. And I would refer only to 2 in the same area, which Romania and Austria jointly coordinate, namely navigation and river transport. There is this Fast Danube project, a project aimed to improve the navigation in the sector of the Danube where most bottlenecks occur during the year, namely the Romanian-Bulgarian sector of the Danube. This is a concrete project helping concretely impacting on the capacity to transport goods on the Danube more days in a year than until now. I would also briefly mention the projects related to harmonization and digitalization of control procedures on the Danube. And this will not only reduce bureaucracy, but they will also reduce time for crew, for transport, and thus make the Danube corridor a better tool for business, for tourism, for transport. Let's hope for better and more projects to the benefit of our population, of our people in the Danube region, because these projects, once implemented, they will definitively reshape the way integration works in this region.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Vadim, we certainly are aware of the geopolitical dimension that this war of aggression against Ukraine has. But within this overall development, there is also some sort of positive aspects towards the steps that we are finally bold enough to also work on an EU integration with Ukraine. And while Ukraine's EU accession advances under these extraordinary circumstances, can regional frameworks realistically deliver what the formal accession process cannot?
Дякую. Дійсно, сьогоднішній день війна дуже вплинула на розвиток нашої країни.
Thank you. The war has affected the development of our country.
Ми всі розуміємо, що ми дуже багато у нас було поражено енергетики та, якщо брати з економічної сторони, та тих заводів, фабрик, які відпрацьовували на економіку країни.
We understand that a lot of energetic infrastructure, fabrics were damaged or destroyed even because of aggression.
Але це ніщо порівняно з тим, скільки загинуло людей та отримали поранення і травми.
But it's nothing in comparing the amount of dead people because of the attacks.
Мільйони людей залишились без житла і без засобів на існування.
Millions of people now are without homes and without way to live.
Але наш курс все рівно незмінний. Ми працюємо на те, щоб відпрацювати, і я впевнений, що разом ми встановимо нашу країну і будемо працювати ще більше, ще краще, розвивати і економіку, сільське господарство та промисловість.
But we will not change our course, and we are ready to cooperate for recovery of Ukraine in the different fields like agriculture, maritime, logistics, and so on.
Якщо повернемося знову до питання, то хочу сказати, що регіональні формати співпраці дають те, чого формальний процес вступу забезпечити не може.
Regarding your question, the regional cooperation formats provide something that the formal accession process cannot.
Це швидкість, гнучкість і практичний результат тут і зараз.
It's a speed, flexibility, and practical results here and now.
Поки переговорний процес рухається через складні інституційні державні процедури, міжрегіональна співпраця дозволяє вже сьогодні реалізовувати спільні проекти, обмінюватися рішеннями та інтегруватися в європейські практики на рівні громад.
While the negotiation process moves through the complex institutional procedures, interregional cooperation already allows for the implementation of joint projects, exchange of solutions, and integration into European practices at community level today.
Зокрема, в рамках ARGE Donauländer, AER, AEBR, Єврорегіон Нижній Дунай, регіони мають можливість тестувати спільні підходи у сферах логістики, екології, освіти чи медицини без тривалих формальних процедур.
In particular, within the ARGE Donauländer, AER, AEBR, and Euro-region Lower Danube, regions have the opportunity to test common approaches in logistics, environmental protection, education, and healthcare without lengthy formal procedures.
Таким чином, регіональна співпраця фактично виступає прискорювачем європейської інтеграції.
In this way, the regional cooperation effectively acts an accelerator of European integration.
Вона дозволяє Україні інтегруватися не лише формально, а й практично через конкретні результати та довіру між партнерами та регіонами.
It allows Ukraine to integrate not only formally, but also practically through concrete results and trust-based partnerships.
Dякую. Sophia, we've heard a lot about regional cooperation in different formats and also the coordination within the EUSDR. You've worked a lot on the citizens' perspective, and I would like to bring this also a little bit into the discussion. You did also work on a survey regarding the opinions of people, especially from our region. We've done a project at IDM. How do we make this regional cooperation visible and meaningful to citizens? What did you find out, rather than something that remains within expert discussions and maybe administrative circles?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this question of how to bring different initiatives out of the expert bubbles to the citizens, it applies to many policies. And that it's necessary has been shown through many surveys and projects. We did also a project at IDM last year on macro-regional strategies and the awareness about these macro-regional strategies among citizens. And there was also a survey with young people, and actually 67% of the respondents said that they were unaware of macro-regional strategies before doing the survey. So this clearly shows that, yeah, there is not much awareness for the EUSDR and other macro-regional strategies among the public. And for EU enlargement, it's the same as you mentioned. I did a survey during the project as a Charlemagne Prize Fellow on EU enlargement and citizen participation. And in the survey, I asked people how informed they feel and how involved they feel in the EU enlargement process. And it became clear that people feel underinformed about it. This is also a similar results were there in the last Eurobarometer survey from last September, I think, on EU enlargement. And also there's a lack of awareness of how to engage themselves in the EU enlargement process. And at the same time, only 10% of the respondents of my survey said that they think there is no need for citizens to be involved in the process. So really a majority wants to be involved. They also showed openness to be involved in different formats, surveys, exchanges with policymakers, also exchanges between citizens of EU countries and candidate countries or different citizen initiatives. So there is a clear need to involve citizens, and citizens also are interested in it and want that. How to implement that? I think there's no easy or quick solution. I think all stakeholders, the macro-regional strategies like the EUSDR, but also the national level, the regional levels, the EU level, and also think tanks like the IDM and other institutions. I think it's about a continuous effort on including citizens in projects, in initiatives, and I think through that, in the long term, we can maybe achieve more citizen engagement and a more active citizenship when it comes to different policy areas and cooperation areas.
Thank you. I will follow up here, if you allow me. That especially when we look at the Eurobarometer survey that you mentioned, Harald said that from the foreign ministry there is a lot of enthusiasm for enlargement. If we look at the citizens in Austria, not so much. And there seems to be some sort of enlargement fatigue among countries, especially also within our region, but beyond. What I find also interesting is that for instance, countries that have very much benefited from joining the European Union, also within the last 2 decades, that here the population is also very skeptical against further enlargement. And so my question to you, how can maybe regional cooperation help to counter this enlargement fatigue, and how?
Yeah, I think that takes me back to what has already been said a lot, that regional cooperation can be much more tangible for citizens and can in much better ways explain why European integration is necessary and is also something positive. Because if we think of why is there enlargement fatigue in the public of some member countries, it's mostly because the EU and also the EU enlargement process feels very abstract, it feels very far away for many citizens, and this leaves a gap for Eurosceptic narratives, for misinformation, for disinformation to step in. And this leads then to concerns, but also really fears of EU enlargement. Also in this Eurobarometer survey, the strongest concerns of the citizens regarding EU enlargement are migration, corruption and organized crime, and the third one, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. But
The war wasn't it war in Ukraine?
no, I don't think so. I think it's something else.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, so I think if we think about the 2004 big Eastern enlargement of the EU, for example, there was also this stereotype of the Polish plumber, this fear of wage dumping because of the new member states. And if we think about how it developed, this fear never materialized in that extreme way. And now we observe a similar situation, that there are other fears related to other topics. And I think it's important to have a factual discussion about the benefits and challenges of EU enlargement, because there are also challenges, but also benefits, and not an emotional one. And that's why I think, again, regional cooperation can do a lot to contribute to such a more factual discussion, and also to making citizens feel what does cross-border cooperation and what does European integration bring in their everyday lives, what benefits do they bring. And we also, maybe I can mention our current project at IDM, where we also focus a lot on this cross-border perspective. In our project Citizen, we work together with think tanks from the 11 most EU enlargement skeptic EU countries, including Austria, of course, and 3 candidate countries. And we bring the representatives of these think tanks together in multiple workshops. And the goal is to try to collect all the national perspectives on EU enlargement, what are common disinformation narratives on EU enlargement in each individual country. I mean, there's countries that are under these 11 most EU enlargement skeptic countries, also Portugal, but also Bulgaria, so really from one side of the EU to the other. And probably narratives there are very different. We will have our first workshop soon in June. And then the goal is to create a toolkit on how to better communicate the topic of EU enlargement to citizens.
Thank you very much. Sophia mentioned this regional perspective and the necessity to involve the citizens. I think it's a wrong approach to always ask the candidate countries to explain why they would want to join. I think we need to better explain to our citizens why having candidate countries in is such a benefit for the European Union. But from Odessa's perspective, what would be the most urgent forms of cross-border cooperation that are needed now and not in a distant accession future? And maybe also, taking the perspective into account, Sophia mentioned the Polish plumber. I have the feeling a little bit that Ukrainian grain is the Polish plumber of nowadays. So what is needed on a regional cooperation level to actually advance that right now and here, as you mentioned, with regional cooperation before?
З точки зору Одеської області, сьогодні найбільш нагальними є форми транскордонної співпраці, які дають швидкий практичний ефект для людей і економіки сьогодні.
From the perspective of Odessa region, the most urgent forms of cross-border cooperation today is these forms that deliver rapid practical benefits and results for people and the economy.
Передусім, це розвиток логістичних коридорів у Дунайському напрямку.
First of all, it's the development of logistic corridors in the Danube direction.
Це спрощення процедур, модернізація прикордонної інфраструктури та розвиток інтермодальних перевезень.
It's simplifying procedures, modernizing border infrastructures, and expanding intermodal transportation.
Друге – це спільні проекти у сфері управління водними ресурсами та екологічної безпеки.
The second, it's a need for a joint project in the water resource management and environmental security, which are critically important for the entire Danube basin.
Що є критично важливим для всього Дунайського басейну.
Yes, it's very important for all the Danube basin.
Третє – це співпраця у сфері медицини, зокрема реабілітації та ментального здоров'я, де обмін досвідом і спільні рішення потрібні вже сьогодні.
Third, this cooperation in healthcare, particularly in rehabilitation and mental health, it's essential because the exchange of experience and joint solutions are already needed today.
Перед нашою нарадою ми якраз розмовляли по цьому питанні по реабілітації та ментальним здоров'ям. І я сказав, що, на жаль, Україна сьогодні, мабуть, найбільш розвинута і найбільш сильніша країна в сфері медицини, в реабілітації та ментального здоров'я.
We talked about this session that Ukraine, unfortunately, now is the most powerful country in theme of rehabilitation and mental health support.
Тому що ми з цим кожен день спілкуємося з цими людьми, і не тільки військовими, а й цивільними людьми, які потрапили під такий жорсткий пресінг і під війну.
Because we face it every day, we talk to these people, the military civilians who was under the pressure and under the war.
І немає якоїсь програми чи спільного підходу до всіх. Це індивідуальний підхід до кожного.
And there is no unique program for all of them. It should be individual approach to every person.
Також актуальним є проекти у сфері управління відходами та циркулярної економіки, які дозволяють громадам швидко впроваджувати європейські екологічні стандарти.
Also, projects in waste management and circular economy are also highly relevant, enable communities to quickly implement European standards, environmental standards.
Дунай – це наша спільна ріка, це наша спільна жила, вена, на якій тече кров, від якої живуть і виживають люди.
Danube is our common river, and we live from this river, our residents of the Danube basin.
Ми всі різні, але Дунай нас об'єднує.
Yeah, we are all different, but Danube unites us.
І нарешті освіта та професійна підготовка, зокрема через дуальні програми і короткострокові обміни, які формують людський капітал для відновлення регіону.
Finally, the education and vocational training, especially through dual education programs and short-term exchanges.
Саме такі практичні напрями вже зараз формують реальну інтеграцію, незалежно від формального статусу та членства.
These practical areas are already creating real integration today, regardless of the formal status of EU membership.
Exactly. Stefan Raab, Romania is not in these bottom 11 of the enlargement skeptic countries. So, job well done, I would say. But Sophia also mentioned these blockages that are happening on the European level. Yeah? 1,900 possibilities for vetoes. Finally get the number right. How do you think that macro-regional strategies can help to overcome not only these veto points but also other blockages on a European level?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Macro-regional strategies have definitively the positive impact on the candidates countries. It helps them to get familiar with the EU acquis, to familiarize with EU instruments and values instruments, including funding instruments, which is very important for them. Macro-regional strategies, and I have in mind the Danube one and the Adriatic and Ionian one. They help candidate countries to work on an equal basis, on an equal footing, as was said here before, with EU member states, and this is very, very important. What we could do better is to better help candidate countries to fulfill their obligations under the association agreements and use the cooperation in the framework of macro-regional strategies towards this aim. On the blockages, I mean, I would not necessarily refer to blockages, because we could notice in recent years some quite good progress on enlargement, and perhaps the most important thing is that nowadays there is a wide acknowledgement of the fact that enlargement is a geostrategic must for the EU. No doubt about this. Eurobarometer, indeed, I think only 56% of EU population is in favor of enlargement.
On average.
This can be regarded also as a good news, but the figure differs from country to country. And I think we need to do more on this and to better explain the benefits of the enlargement. Because if I recall correctly, only 67% of the people feel well enough informed about what enlargement really brings. To inform them better with accurate and clear and understandable messages, to inform the population about the benefits of the enlargement is an important task for candidate countries, for EU institutions, and for EU member states equally. And I think we need to do this, bearing also in mind that there are some actors which nowadays are trying to undermine the enlargement process by exploiting the fears and complaints, some rightly existing among our populations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Martin, if we now look at your current profession, and if we look at diplomatic training, what can here in this field and what can institutions also maybe do differently today to prepare a more region-driven model of European integration?
Well, thank you so much. Before I respond to your question, I have to say something to Sofia and also to our colleague from Romania. I think what would be also a great support for our knowledge, but also the support for enlargement would be to go and see yourself what this region looks like. Because I always make the test and ask people, where do you go on vacation? So, okay, Austrians go to Italy, vacation goal number one. I cannot say anything against it. I was ambassador to Italy and I understand why people want to go there. We go to the Mediterranean, as we call it, the bathtub of Europe. We go to Slovenia, we go to Croatia. But I always ask people, have you ever skied in Eastern Europe? And there is Zakopane, there's Srpske Pleso in Slovakia, there's Bojana Brašov and Sinaia in Romania, there is Bansko in Bulgaria. There are so many areas to be explored. And I find that our Austrian citizens love to go west and they don't go east. And I again and again find people who say, I've just been to Romania, beautiful, Transylvania, the old churches, the monasteries in Moldova. We were in the Carpathian Mountains, we climbed Mondoviano, it was just fantastic. Yes, but there are very few. And if you look to the figures, there are about 50,000 Austrians who go to Montenegro each year. Good number, but not sufficient, because people don't know in reality when we talk about enlargement what we are talking about. But this was just a side remark. Yeah. Talking about my profession as director of the Diplomatic Academy, I think you must know we have now currently 245 students from 64 nations. So we are really, I would say, global. And what is great about the Diplomatic Academy is that, of course, we also train young diplomats from many, many countries and primarily from this region, because after 1989, many young diplomats from the EUSDR region, from Ukraine, were trained actually at the Diplomatic Academy. So we have many alumni who are fans of the Diplomatic Academy, but who have created a permanent bond to our alumni. And for those who study now with us, regional activities, I mean, what you experience in Vienna is this cultural mix of the Danube region. And we have our students constantly go to the Danube region and explore the countries. So I think what we can show them, of course, we also do it on a theoretical basis. We just, 2 weeks ago, we had the Secretary General, Petr Pliškovský, of the Committee of Regions, who came to the Diplomatic Academy and explained how important it is to conduct a subnational policy, meaning a regional policy in cooperation. And our students were totally impressed, because you always talk about foreign policy concepts at the national level. But to understand what is going on in cross-border projects, in Danube projects, in subnational regional cooperation, is something which you usually do not study when you study international relations. So we try to really give this additional information on how important this regional cooperation is.
Thank you. I have one more question, and then I will open up the floor to questions for the audience, so you can already start thinking about the burning issues that you have. Harald, I've asked Martin about his professional capacity. You have also another professional capacity that I mentioned in the beginning, with regards to the reconstruction of Ukraine. And here, of course, I would also be interested what you believe regions can contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Thank you, Sebastian. I'd like to start again with a couple of facts and figures. So first of all, Ukraine is the largest reconstruction project in Europe since World War II. So this is fact number one. According to the World Bank, the reconstruction investment needs amount to roughly $600 billion US. Unfortunately, still, as the war is still going on, daily increasing. So Ukraine, of course, needs and deserves our support in these reconstruction efforts, which provide also, and also this is important to know and to stress, because it's not always about altruism, provide business opportunities for our industries and companies inside Austria, but also for other neighboring countries and EU countries vis-à-vis the Ukraine. So more than 200 Austrian companies are present in the Ukraine, employing almost 30,000 of Ukrainian employees. Here now, more specifically on your question, the Danube and the Black Sea area will also be of crucial importance. As for the reconstruction of Ukraine, they will also feel the reconstruction most. Of course, because geographically and also logistically, a lot will be done via Danube countries and Black Sea regions. So the regions and the local level will be, of course, also essential in these reconstruction efforts. Why? Reconstruction is often understood in terms of big infrastructure projects, financing institutions, World Bank, and so on and so. Rightly so. But if it's to be sustainable, it must be rooted again in the regions and the communities. Because at the region and the local level, it's where reconstruction becomes again tangible for citizens, where schools are built, where energy systems are modernized, where housing is designed, where also very important, trust in public institutions is rebuilt. And also, not to forget, municipalities and regions are better equipped to absorb reconstruction funds and also to engage directly in cross-border cooperation. From an Austrian perspective, we know what we are talking about, because Austria has a federal structure with strong regions and federal provinces, which are drivers for innovation and enable tailored solutions also here. And this is precisely where the Austrian model, we believe, can also support and help Ukraine, not only rebuilding, but in modernizing and accelerating its path towards Europe. And we are doing it already now, sharing Austrian expertise in the area of EU regional and cohesion policy, a very critical and sensitive issue. We've heard already today a strong place that the regions will also, let's say, in governance terms, play its roles also in the future. And then there is also, I would like to mention, a very concrete initiative called EU-LEAD, Perhaps some of you have already heard about it. It's a multi-donor project of the European Union and 7 of its member states, including Austria, where also Austria is financing this project considerably with Austrian taxpayers' money, and where Austria supports very practically local and regional development in Ukraine, building local regional partnerships for local governance reforms, strengthening administrative capacities, also providing know-how transfer in areas like sustainable energy, infrastructure planning, also waste management. I'm mentioning waste management here as well, and also dual education, because the representative from the Odessa region mentioned these areas and thematic priorities as well. So regional networks come here in, and they can build really bridges for practical cooperation where the national level sometimes is too tedious, too slow, or perhaps may also face some constraints. And here again, I think, and that's the reason why we're happy to be here today. Here, the Austrian province of Lower Austria and the working community of the Danube Regions exemplify how long-standing regional cooperation can create trust and of course, has been practical results. Final remark, reconstruction, the EU integration, they are not parallel or separate process, they're mutually reinforcing one. Also, this is very, very important, because by strengthening Ukraine's regional structures today, we are laying the groundwork for its successful integration, gradual integration into the EU tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. So, here is the opportunity to ask questions. There is a question already here. Will you? Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, remember, KISS, keep it short and simple. And also introduce yourself, please.
Sure thing, thank you so much. So my name is Daria Hrosel. I'm part of the Next Visionaries program, but I'm also a Young European Ambassador, yeah, that's right. Sorry, it's such a title. That which is an initiative and part of the EU Neighbours East program. And I want really to thank Ms. Sophie and Mr. Martin for speaking regarding the importance of sharing knowledge about EU enlargement. I think it's truly important, and me as a Young European Ambassador, this is my job, volunteer job, to share knowledge in Ukraine about the perspectives of EU integration and what we can gain from it. Regarding that, I wanted to ask you, do you aware of any such program or initiative among adults, like maybe some informal trainings or something, where citizens of EU members countries could learn more about candidate countries and the possibilities of entering the EU?
This was directed to Sophia and Martin?
Yes, yes, or maybe any other could also.
Okay, so maybe you two start, and then others can add to it if there is an awareness about this.
Well, what you mean is a private citizens initiative of adults. There are many organizations who work in this field. I think of our Society for European Policy, Gesellschaft für Europapolitik, IDM. There are many think tanks, many organizations that have a very vast program on information about enlargement countries, what is going on in the different countries. IDM has regular meetings on practically all the countries of the region. So I think there's enough information out there. Can you really get the enthusiasm of Austrians, for example, of adults, to get engaged and to inform themselves about what's going on? This is the really difficult point, and where it needs a lot of political communication, a lot of communication by our political representatives, who wherever they go also point to the fact of the added value that we will eventually get from all those member countries, be it geostrategic, yes, but also in real terms. And then, of course, also what I always promote is how strongly we are linked to these countries by history, by culture. I'm a member of the board of the European Union Youth Orchestra. Basically, just for you who do not know, it's headquartered here in Lower Austria in Grafeneck. And this is a fantastic institution because by its statutes, it has to have one musician from every single one of the 27 member states, but they always also invite musicians from the candidate countries. So I think those initiatives are great because you basically constantly get involved in projects that relate to those countries. But it is a difficult sell. When it was mentioned that there is an average of 56% in favor of enlargement according to the Eurobarometer, we are at 45% in Austria, and this is definitely not good enough. We need to work on it, and as I said, it's not a lack of information that is out there, a lack of organizations that deal with it. It's rather of bringing it to the people, and this can best be done, of course, by mayors, by governors, by members of parliament who are out there constantly talking to people, and they should not forget to talk about enlargement and the enlargement countries.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There are a lot of initiatives, but yeah, the problem is always how to get it outside of the bubble of already interested people and already informed people. And I would also say it's then more on the political level, the responsibility. But what I maybe can also mention is that in the project that I was doing, in the survey that I was doing among citizens on information and involvement in the EU enlargement process, one point was also that citizens would really like to have exchange possibilities between citizens of EU member states and candidate countries. And especially also not only at the university level, because of course there are already a lot of exchange possibilities with Erasmus, but also including different parts of society. So I think there is definitely interest in the public for something like that. But it's then again up to the more institutional and political level to work on that.
All right.
Perhaps a brief adding from my side. First of all, I think on the EU level, there is, of course, the Director General for Enlargement and Neighborhood Policy. There is an Austrian working specifically, on Ukraine and reconstruction, also people-to-people contacts. So afterwards, I can, of course, share the details and the contacts of her with you. And then I repeat myself, there is this project you lead, I mentioned, specifically on regional cooperation, people-to-people contacts. Also on that one, there is let's say a coordinator sitting in Vienna. I have his contacts. Later on, I can share it with you. So you have also on the EU level and also on the Austria's level a contact to follow up.
Anything to add? Then we have another question in the back here.
Gerhard Reiwiger, I'm presently the president of the Austrian-Bulgarian Association, and I do not have a question, but I have a comment on the question of which organizations there are that would work on getting countries to know each other or getting people to know the countries of the region. And there are a lot of bilateral friendship organizations like the Austrian-Bulgarian Association. And there is also an association that organizes all of the friendship organizations. So there is a network that is exactly this opportunity that you may be looking for to get engaged and do something to spread the information about countries of the region and the opportunities there for Austria also.
Thank you. Another quick commercial break. Thank you for that. And here we have another question.
Harald Steindl, I'm Senior Research Fellow on an economic institution based in Vienna. 22 years ago, I take part on a research study organized by the Council of Europe on the history, the fate of the so-called divided cities. And this group of researchers at the Viadrina found 150 divided cities from North Finland to Cyprus today. And we discussed what had happened in case of war, in case of, the treaties of Paris, in Austria, for example, Gmünd, Radgersburg, Hainburg had been at the time divided. And all of the activities show that Europe will go united at these borderlines. Because, for example, at Hamburg, 25% of the citizens are Slovakian. And that's the case of the so-called twin cities. And we have to organize at the borderline activities, infrastructure, cultural activities, sports activities, fireworker, and so on. And there is Europe, not between the so-called Weimar Triangle.
Okay, so no question in there. Another quick commercial break that I take. We did an Info Europa. The editor-in-chief is also with us on stage, Sophia, on these divided cities online on our website. Have a look and let us know what do you think about this then. What you want to
100 books on that series.
Okay.
But I can tell you that particularly in the Interreg program, there's lots of projects going on, particularly in the divided city. Happy to say that during my time here in Lower Austria, we're establishing the first ever cross-border healthcare center in Gmünd, České Velenice, and it works perfectly across the borders. And maybe to point to something more recent, there is the European Capital of Culture in Gorizia and Nova Gorica. So there are great projects where particularly those divided cities are moving closer, and I think it's a great effort to bring Europe together.
Bilingual schooling, that's important, bilingual schooling.
Okay, we have another question in the back. Yeah, good.
Hello, my name is Mirdin Snoek. I am a Belgian student at the Diplomatic Academy in Vienna under our director who is present here. And I have a question after the excellent panel to connect in a way the regional development to the European development. And my question is twofold in a way. On the one hand, which aspect of regional integration in the Donau region can, according to you, be a driver for European integration? And which other specific regions in Europe do you think are important or will become important through regional integration to be a driver of further European integration? So yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is to the whole panel.
This is to the whole panel.
Wonderful. Okay, then who wants to start? Sure.
Okay, I can start. First of all, it's great to have also a student from Belgium here and interested in what's going on in the Danube area. So this is to start with. I tried to actually, if I understood your question correctly, it was which are concrete steps or areas, where regional cooperation should happen. From a foreign policy perspective, I should say that this systematic integration of the Western Balkan and Eastern Partnership regions, not countries, also regions, including, of course, Ukraine and Moldova, into the EU's single market, digital and energy. I can come up with 2 or 3 concrete examples. I think this would be very important because it would be felt immediately by the citizens as benefits of gradual integration ahead of formal accession. So energy integration to interconnect electricity grids, very, very important, I think, but also even more so for the citizens, digital connectivity. So establish a shared regional digital area by lowering roaming charges. I think this is also very important that, let's say, that the people, the citizens in the accession countries feel already treated the same way as European citizens. And then, of course, also when it comes to transport and logistics, I think it's very, very important that in these areas we, in a way, try to establish a more interconnected, and I stress European area, not EU area and the EU accession area, but European area, because I think we have to think at Europe now in this geopolitical world and times in a very broad way. not talking about, I don't know, EU member states and accession countries. Of course, this is very, very important for the politicians, but at the same time, I mean, when we look globally, also seeing transatlantic relationship, seeing China as a giant, you know, I think it's important that we see each other as a big European family with strong regions. I think this is and then, you know, since you ask, I mean, which are the regions where we could model after this cooperation? I think it's the federal countries. Or the federal countries, let's say, at the core of the European project. And it's not only, let's say, a kind of complement to a Belgian student, but I think it's also a kind of Benelux or founding countries logic that should also take place in the Danube region. And I finish with a kind of perspective. I mean, for us, it's so normal today that the Rhine is let's say, European river, binding together since decades already member states, full-fledged member states. I have the same perspective, the same vision for the Danube. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? Please, Martin.
First of all, thank you very much for the question. I'm really proud that you're here. I have to say thank you to the organizers because we were allowed to invite 10 students from the Diplomatic Academy to participate in the European Forum Wachau. So a great thank you to the organizers. Secondly, excuse me. What Ambassador Stranzl said, I can fully subscribe to it. As I said before, I think connectivity in transport for me is very important. I think this initiative now by the European Union, single ticket, single train ride, that you have one ticket to ride a train within Europe would be fantastic to have, you know, to this connectivity also in the train area that I mentioned before in the letter report, which would be so important for our competitiveness as well. But one element that might be interesting for you, there is a European regional competitiveness report. And it basically each year, it lists all the regions by its competitivity. And in Lower Austria, we looked very careful at who are the leaders. And at the time, it was the Greater London area, excuse me, it was Stockholm, and it was Utrecht. And we, Simon is nodding, thank you very much, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it is great for European regions that they can look to the ones which are the best in terms of innovation power. And this is something where many, many regions take as a model the best innovative regions in Europe. And we have done the same thing. We have well, sometimes successful, sometimes not so successful, try to get in contact with those regions and study them. Why are they so successful? And I think it's great to have basically a competition between the regions to see who is more competitive and why. So I think this is also a great idea to have a model on who is the front runner among the regions.
Thank you, Martin. I have to mention, since you now talked 2 times about the connectivity, there is a direct connection from Vienna to Kiev. I just took the train 2 weeks ago for the second time. It's a wonderful train trip through the Carpathian Mountains. So we are working on this already, again, without Ukraine being an EU member country. But yeah, coming to the question that was asked from the audience, what would be this driver?
I think that every region is important.
І кожен регіон в своїй сфері є чимось вищим, більшим, чим інші регіони.
And every region is in such its sphere, its area better than other.
І одне з завдань – це об'єднати зусилля різних регіонів в їх найвищій точці сили з іншими регіонами. Тоді стануть всі регіони сильними і стануть в пріоритеті, будуть розвиватися значно швидше.
And the key idea is to unite all these powerful different regions. So, for example, one region is more powerful in some such area, and then united together, then all the region will be the same. We will have the same power.
Як це зробити? Це може запустити спільні транскордонні пілотні кластери співпраці в ключових сферах. Це логістика, екологія, реабілітація.
How it can be done? It's, for example, to organize to launch joint cross-border projects, like, for example, pilot cooperation clusters in key sectors such as logistics, environmental protection, and rehabilitation.
Це конкретні проекти з обох сторін кордону.
These are concrete projects from the both sides of border.
Модернізація пунктів пропуску, створення спільних сервісів в медицині чи управлінні водними ресурсами.
It's modernizing border crossing points to create the joint services in healthcare, for example, or water resource management.
Такі кластери можуть діяти як демонстраційні моделі європейської інтеграції на практиці, які швидко масштабуються та відтворюються в інших регіонах.
Such clusters could function as demonstration models of European integration in practice and be capable of being rapidly scaled and replicated in other regions.
Якщо брати конкретно ARGE Donauländer, це може стати системним інструментом для перетворення партнерства з формату діалогу у формат конкретних спільних результатів.
Particularly within ARGE Donauländer, this could become a systematic tool for transforming partnerships from dialogue-based format into a framework of concrete results.
Взаєморозуміння і повага одне до одного і гармонія регіонів – це надзвичайно важливо.
The respect to each other and harmony of regions is incredibly important.
От як зараз в нас на сцені 5 сурових чоловіків з галстуками.
For example, now on this scene there are 5 serious men with the ties.
І 2 прекрасні жінки, які прикрашають нашу сцену.
And 2 pretty women, like yes.
Так і в житті, так і в регіонах.
It's in the life and in the region the same.
Well, connecting the train, that train from Vienna to Kiev is separated in Debrecen and also goes to Bucharest. So maybe.
As rightly mentioned here, connectivity is of utmost importance and is a real driver for further integration. And I have in mind transport connectivity, it was mentioned digital connectivity, but also energy connectivity. When we talk about connectivity, I want to also highlight the need to look for complementarities between the Danube region and the wider Black Sea region, because both of them will be very much of relevance during the times of reconstruction of Ukraine. I will also say a few words about the need to invest in the ownership of our European future at the level of our young generation, and I'm happy to see many of you present today here. In the Danube strategy, we have established the Danube Youth Council and have allowed and enabled youngsters to contribute to the shaping of various sectoral policies and the implementation of concrete projects. So the time has come now for more targeted investment in education, in upskilling, but also as well as in actions to combat brain drain and to tackle the youth unemployment.
Thank you. Sophia.
Yeah, many areas have already been mentioned. Maybe I can just mention again, connected to the project we are doing at the moment at IDM. For example, also the topic of disinformation, and there I also think it can be very valuable to work in on the regional cooperation level, because maybe communication campaigns and information campaigns from the EU maybe cannot reach every country equally or every region equally, because they all have to do with different disinformation narratives, with different fears of EU enlargement or also connected to other topics. So I think here, more regional perspectives are also very valuable to inform the public and counter disinformation, for example.
Thank you very much. Is there a pressing question left? Ooh, okay. Yeah, then quickly here, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Natalia Krivda. I am professor of Kyiv Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, part of this Next Vision program, and also I'm head of Ukrainian Cultural Foundation, the biggest cultural foundation in Ukraine. And with all my respect, these two ladies here are not because they are beautiful. They are specialists, they are experts, with all my respect. So, dear ladies, we respect you, and this is very important for us, for all of us. Doesn't matter are you lady or gentleman. This is part of European values. So thank you for these discussions, and it was very important for us to emphasize this. Thank you so much.
In the very back.
Thank you so much. My name is Jonathan Lucas, and I'm a composer and pianist from Salzburg, Austria. And I travel to Ukraine on a regular basis, and also to other countries like Lebanon and other regions. And I have different concert projects fostering peace and projects based on like focusing on democratic values. And my question to the whole panel is, when we talk about the reconstruction of Ukraine, which role has cultural exchange in terms of making long-term relationships resilient?
Thank you. Who wants to start? One last round. Martin.
I should show it to you. Culture is very in big letters written here, and I have not managed to get to it. I think when I talked at the beginning about people-to-people contacts and about the human factor, I think cultural relations are absolutely of the essence. We need to have them. It's also to expand them, particularly also to the candidate countries, and to bring them in on cultural projects is, to me, as I'm a great fan of cultural exchanges, I think is among the most powerful tools in the whole enlargement process.
Thank you.
I fully agree with Ambassador Eichtinger. I mean, we do understand that perhaps at least in the attention as of now, I mean, it's the immediate needs of the Ukrainian people, which is rehabilitation, medical services, and so on. But nevertheless, I think we have to start thinking already now, what can we do in terms of using the power of culture to heal the wounds. And that's I think exactly the moment where then again I think the European Union comes in, and I'm sure that they are already in the medium and longer term considerations, culture and its power already taken into consideration, but also all the member states. And I think, I mean, we tend to think that Austria is culturally even bigger than it is geographically and population-wise. So also this. Your question, in fact, could be a kind of inspiration, I think, for all of us, including myself, to think what we can do in terms of using culture and music to bring us even closer together.
No? Okay, then we've almost come to the end. I mean, it shows only what brilliant students you have that they take away my closing question. Yeah. Actually, it's the second time it happened at the Danube Salon. Maybe that's a thing. Or I need to think about a better closing question. I don't know, but I have a different one. So be prepared for one last round. Sophia, where are you going to go on holiday this year?
Where are you going?
To go on holiday.
To Portugal.
Okay. Stefan Raab.
I plan to visit Montenegro.
Okay. Martin?
Well, currently no vacation planned, but I very quickly go now to Hungary because we will start a cooperation project with a future United Nations university in Köszeg. So I will be in a few weeks. I will be in Hungary.
Okay, all right.
Actually, I understood the logic of your question, but also in my case, it's France and Hungary. But I have to say that given my professional and professional function, that's I think an excuse. I will be in Ukraine also later this year.
Okay, thank you. And Vadim, I'm not going to ask where you go on holiday because I know that in wartime there are no holidays. But maybe you want to make a case for visiting your beautiful city.
Під час військового стану, під час війни в Україні немає у нас ні вихідних, ні відпусків.
Yes, you're right. During the war, we don't have any holidays or weekends.
І тому ми їдемо в Одесу відпочивати, там і відпочиваємо. Там живемо, там і відпочиваємо.
So we go to Odessa to have a holiday, and we are living in Odessa and have a holiday in Odessa.
І це не саме погане місце на світі.
It's not.
Мабуть, це саме краще.
It's maybe the best city in the world.
Ми вас запрошуємо з задоволенням, вас зустрінемо і покажемо всі наші можливості і наше місце.
We are glad to invite you to our city to show all the possibilities of our city and all the beauty of our
І якщо
city.
повернутися до запитання про культуру та музику,
And if regarding the question about culture and music,
я вже казав, що в Одеській області проживає 133 національності.
I have already told that in Odessa region there are 133 nationalities.
І потрібно віддати їм честь за те, що вони бережуть свою культуру і розвивають свою і музику, і культуру, мають свої творчі колективи, якими обмінюються з усіма країнами, ну, зокрема, якщо брати, то Європейського Союзу та Дунайського регіону.
And we should honor them because they are developing their culture, they saved their culture, and they have such musicians, maybe some ensembles, groups, and they change also experience with all the Danube countries, as we know.
І хоча, якщо кажуть, що коли говорять пушки, музика мовчить, це неправда, музика все рівно пробиває любі громи і пушки.
I'm not sure that I can explain it. But the main idea is the music is louder than sound of battle.
Very good, very good. Can't wait to be back in your wonderful city. You wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to ask what the current program is at the famous Helmer and Fellner theater in Odessa, because you have this beautiful opera, and I'm not sure if there is any program at the moment. I'm afraid not.
На сьогоднішній день театри працюють, і оперний театр також працює.
And nowadays, all the theaters are working, and we have program in Opera House. Yes.
Very good.
So please, you're welcome.
Під час тривоги дійсно спектакль
Yes.
втрачається, і виходять всі в бомбосховища, потім знову повертаються разом із артистами, і глядачі разом знаходяться там, більш спілкуються, потім краще знають один одного. Ті на сцені, ті в залі.
And of course, during the alarm, all the visitors and all the actors should go to the shelter, and then they in this shelter they can get acquainted with each other, become more familiar, and better understand what's going on the scene, and then they come back when the alarm is over.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for this wonderful panel. I think within this new format of the Europa-Forum Wachau, this was really a wonderful occasion. I think we need to give a big round of applause to Diana Yeftimova for the translation. And it's I mean, you could use AI translation here, but it proves that it is still something that is valid and necessary. And maybe at a parallel salon they talked about AI, but the real deal is still something that is very important when we connect our region. Thank you very much. This was the 2026 Danube Salon at the Europa-Forum Wachau. I'm Sebastian Schaffer, and it was a pleasure to moderate this wonderful event. Please stay in touch with the region and also with us. You can subscribe to our newsletter at idm.at or follow us on social media at IDM Vienna. A huge thank you, as always, to the outstanding cooperation with the working community for the Danube regions, the ARGE Donauländer, the Office of the State Government of Lower Austria, as well as the Europa-Forum Wachau. And we will hopefully have the chance in 5 years, again, we sit here and talk about 2 decades of EUSDR, but then find out if we are on the right track, what you told us. In the meantime, I hope that we will see each other next year. Place, time and date still to be determined. And now I invite you to join us for some bread and wine outside, I think. Thank you very much.